Greetings, horror enthusiasts. On this video, we'll be listening to 3 stories that rotates on the first Conjuring film. The third one was a true story sent by an anonymous listener. Enjoy. It started with a whisper. David Thompson had never believed in ghosts. A retired detective, he had spent decades chasing real-life monsters, murderers, thieves, criminals of flesh and blood. The supernatural was nothing more than folklore to him. But when his younger sister Rachel bought a historic home in Harrisville, Rhode Island, the same home that inspired The Conjuring, David felt a chill he couldn't quite explain. Rachel, an eager historian, was enthralled by the house's past. She brushed off the legends and strange occurrences reported by previous owners. Ghosts? Please, she laughed. It's just an old house with an overactive reputation. Then the whispers began. At first, Rachel heard them at night, soft murmurs in the hallway, unintelligible but persistent. David dismissed it as wind through the cracks or the settling of old wood. But when he visited one weekend, he heard them too. More than that, he felt them. The air in the house was charged with something unseen. The whispers, no longer just noise, carried emotion, grief, anger, something pleading. He could almost make out words, but never quite enough to understand. He caught Rachel standing in the doorway of the basement one night, staring down into the darkness, listening. "I think someone's trying to say something," she whispered. David's instinct screamed at him to get her out of that house. One evening, they decided to investigate the basement, the place rumored to be the heart of the disturbances. With only a flashlight and their phones, they descended the rickety wooden stairs. The air grew thick, oppressive. David felt the detective in him push back against the unease, but something deep inside whispered that he was out of his depth. As they reached the bottom, the light flickered. A sudden knock, loud, deliberate, sounded from the far side of the basement. David swung his flashlight toward the noise, pulse, hammering. Nothing. Rachel let out a sharp breath. "Did you hear that?" Another knock, then another, 3 in total, knocking in threes, a known omen in paranormal lore. David clenched his jaw, forcing himself to step forward. "If someone's here, show yourself." Silence. Then, just as he turned to tell Rachel they were leaving, the flashlight caught something. A figure, just a shadow, standing at the foot of the stairs. Rachel gasped, stumbling back. The temperature plummeted. The shadow remained motionless, but David felt it watching him, as if daring him to move. Then it whispered. Not a murmur this time, but a clear, anguished voice. "Get out!" David grabbed Rachel's arm and ran. They didn't stop until they were outside, gasping for breath under the cold Rhode Island sky. The house loomed behind them, silent now, its secrets buried within its walls. Rachel sold the property within a month, her passion for history replaced by something else, fear. As for David, he never doubted again. Some things weren't meant to be understood. Some places weren't meant to be disturbed. And some whispers should never be answered. A group of paranormal investigators enters the infamous Conjuring house, seeking to debunk myths surrounding its hauntings. But what they uncover is far more terrifying than any story, something that refuses to be forgotten. In 2024, a popular YouTube ghost hunting group, Phantom Seekers, set out to prove the truth behind the legends of the Conjuring house. The team consisted of Ethan, the skeptical leader, Maya, the tech expert, Logan, the camera operator, Jesse, the historian, Ava, the empathic psychic. With their high-tech ghost hunting equipment and millions of followers watching their live-streamed adventure, the group arrived at the house at midnight. Maya set up motion sensors while Logan positioned night vision cameras. Jesse reviewed the house's history, reading accounts of the Perron family's torment in the 1970s. They said Bathsheba, the witch, cursed the land, she muttered. As the investigation began, Ava started hearing whispers, soft, pleading voices. She shivered but dismissed it as nerves. An hour passed with no major activity. Ethan rolled his eyes. Another fake, haunted house. But then, the temperature dropped. The motion sensors went off in the attic. "I'll go check it out," Logan said, grabbing his camera. He climbed up the creaky wooden stairs, his breath visible in the cold. Suddenly, a figure darted past the lens. Logan gasped. "Guys, there's something here." Then, a blood-curdling scream echoed through the house. Logan was gone. Rushing upstairs, they found Logan's camera, still streaming. But the footage showed something impossible. Logan had vanished into thin air. Panic set in. Ava, her hands shaking, murmured, "Something is wrong. This isn't a normal haunting." Then, a voice crackled through the spirit box. A child's voice. "Help! She won't let us go." Jesse flipped through old newspaper clippings. The Perrons were tormented here, but they left. But what if the real victims never did? Ava gasped, realization dawning. The spirits trapped here. They aren't demons. They're victims, forgotten souls. Maya's laptop screen flickered, revealing Logan standing in the attic, but his eyes were hollow, and he whispered, "Don't forget me." Then they saw it, the dark figure of a woman standing behind him. Bathsheba. She wasn't haunting the house. She was feeding off it, keeping the souls trapped so she would never be alone. "We need to break the cycle," Ava shouted. "We need to remember them." Jesse began reading the names of every soul lost in the house's history. Ethan and Maya joined in, their voices shaking. The house trembled. The walls cracked. Shadows wailed. And then Logan reappeared, collapsing into Ethan's arms. The spirits, freed, whispered their final thanks. As the sun rose, the house stood silent. The live stream audience had seen it all. Millions now knew the truth. Bathsheba could no longer make them forgotten. But as they left, Ava hesitated. In the attic window, a new shadow stood watching. The house was never haunted by demons, but by the forgotten souls Bathsheba had imprisoned. As long as people remembered them, they could be free. But if the world ever forgot again, Bathsheba would return. This story is inspired by real accounts of eerie experiences people had while working at theaters screening The Conjuring. Some say certain horror films carry an energy with them, an invitation. Whether you believe that or not, well, that's up to you. I used to work at a small independent movie theater back in 2013, the year The Conjuring first hit theaters. It was one of those old-school cinemas, the kind with creaky wooden floors, dim lighting, and a long, narrow hallway leading to the projection booth. It had character, but it also had something else. I never really believed in ghosts. Sure, I'd heard weird stories. Every old building has them. But after what I experienced the night we screened The Conjuring, I don't know what to believe anymore. It was a late-night showing, the final one of the evening. Just a handful of people sat scattered in the dark theater, their faces dimly lit by the flickering screen. I was alone in the lobby, counting down the minutes until closing. The only sounds were the hum of the soda machine and the muffled screams from the movie playing behind the doors. And then the lights flickered, not just a quick dimming. They pulsed, like someone was playing with the switch. I turned toward the hallway leading to the projection booth, expecting to see my coworker messing around. But the hallway was empty. Then I heard it. A whisper. Not a distant echoing sound, but a voice right behind me, breathy and low. "You shouldn't be here." I spun around so fast I nearly lost my balance. No one was there. I laughed it off, probably my mind playing tricks on me. The horror movie's atmosphere was getting to me, that's all. I shook it off and went back to my work. But then the projector glitched. The screen went black. I rushed to the booth, expecting to see my coworker scrambling to fix it. But the chair in front of the projector was empty. The only other door to the room was locked from the inside. As I stood there, trying to make sense of it, the film suddenly resumed, only it wasn't where it had left off. The screen showed a single frame, frozen. A woman's face, barely visible in the darkness, her eyes wide, mouth twisted as if caught mid-scream. It wasn't a scene from the movie. I felt a chill crawl up my spine. I reached for my radio to call my coworker, but as soon as my fingers brushed it, bang! The storage closet door behind me slammed shut. I bolted downstairs, my heart pounding. As I reached the lobby, the exit doors that were supposed to stay locked, swung open on their own. By the time the movie ended, I had convinced myself it was all just bad wiring, a draft, maybe a weird projection error. But as the last guests left, one woman stopped near the door. She looked shaken. "Did you hear that?" she asked. I hesitated. "Hear what?" She swallowed. During the last scene, I kept hearing someone whispering behind me. But when I turned around, there was no one there. I forced a smile, trying to ignore the cold sweat on my back. Probably just the sound design of the movie. She shook her head. "No, it wasn't from the speakers. It was right in my ear." Then she looked at me and said something I'll never forget. It said, "You shouldn't be here." The same words I had heard earlier. That was my last night working alone at that theater. And to this day, I wonder, was The Conjuring just a movie? Or did something come with it? Something that never left.